Hey everyone, Selin here from WynnStrength.com, bringing you another day of week 10. So today's workout schedule will actually be an overflow of the movements that I didn't get to do on days 1 and 2. Instead of doing 3 movements that day, I broke it down so I could just focus on the 4 main lifts. We are reducing a lot of volume, so we are just trying to focus on heavy singles. And with that comes a lot longer rest time. So 2 lifts actually took me 2 hours to complete. So a lot more of a longer workout that's not as intense, I guess, but a lot tougher because we're using a lot more weights. It's not as condensed as we would have if we're trying to fit a lot more movements in there. With those heavy weights too comes a lot longer of a warm-up, just because I like to add in some extra warm-ups along the way just so we're ready for those heavier weights. So with that being said, we do have 2 extra movements that we're throwing over today. So we're doing some pause bench pressing and pause squatting with the SS choke bar, and I will introduce a bit more intensity today by adding in some extra movements that are not necessarily part of the program. So we're going to throw in some farmer carries and some sandbag carries as well, just to add a little bit of generalized stress to the body. I will superset that in between the 2 movements here, and we'll see how it goes. I forget where I saw this little hack from, but I think it's a pretty cool way to add some weight to your sandbag if you don't have access to heavier sandbags. Obviously it only works to a certain degree because of size constraints, but all you do is we have a 100-pound sandbag here, and I just grabbed a 25-pound bumper plate. I would say a bumper plate or a rubber coated plate is probably best here, so that it has something to stick to. Just a little bit of safety, because this could fall and land on your toes. But nevertheless, kind of just stack it up onto the sandbag, and then you go pick it up. You can wrap your arms around to bring the sandbag up. Oh. And you now have a 125-pound sandbag that you can walk around with without having to go out and buy a 125-pound sandbag. I'm assuming you can probably do that with any number of weight plates, depending on how long your arms are. I have pretty short arms, so this is probably pushing it. I'm also pretty weak too, so this is probably the limit of that. But give it a go next time. All right, so that wraps it up for day 4 of week 10 with this modified version of the training block that I'm currently doing. Where again, we took some movements that I left out over the first couple of prescribed days, threw them into here just for time constraints. I know I did say that I would do some farmer carries, but I just wasn't feeling it after doing these pause squats with the SS Sherpa. So it was just a top set at 310 pounds, 10 pounds over our last top set last week, which was 300 pounds. So we're tracking along here with our support exercises. What I'll actually be doing this week is dialing back some of the frequency as we increase more of those heavy singles. We have to look at ways to mitigate that stress that's happening from the heavier weights that we're using, even though the overall workload might not be that high. So we're doing a lot less volume, a lot less reps, but we're increasing a lot of that weight. So there's this continuum and this scale that we need to constantly be finding but balancing so that we don't drive ourselves into the ground with too much stress. I know I've talked about increasing the amount of days that I work out in the past, but after reassessing the program, reading a bit more about training structure, program structure, periodization, things like that, I think it's a better idea that I focus more on some heavy lifting. And I mean, when I dial it back, I'm going to dial back to 5 days a week rather than 6 days a week, so we're going to have that 2-day rest in between. But what I've been doing on the support days, or the extra days, is to drop that volume down, favor lighter movements that are either quicker. So like with the sandbag carries today, we did, I didn't want to add too much weight, but we did that for speed rather than for weight. Again, like with the bench press and the squat, we're doing pause variants. That way we're able to mechanically disadvantage the lifts, meaning that we are kind of forced to use some lighter weights, but the perceived difficulty of the lift is still pretty high. So even though we are dropping down to 310 pounds for this, when I mean my 1 rep max at the very least is 450 pounds with the SS stroke bus. So yes, we are repping that, but there's a significant drop in poundages we're using here. But that's because we're adding that pause in the bottom, which adds that difficulty. That way, we're able to mitigate that stress and really divert the body's resources and focus into lifting heavier weights. So we're trying to almost peak in a way. We're hitting that crescendo where we want to focus on displaying that 1 rep max strength because there is the garage gym competition coming up in a couple of weeks now. So that kind of times nicely with when this program is meant to end. So it's just going to be perfect timing there, kind of perfect storm of factors. So ideally I'm wanting to tailor my programming to shift towards lifting those heavy singles for that single display of strength, and then after that we can start playing around with other things. But that's, again, programming things to keep in mind when you do look at your programming. Where are you at in your goals and your progression? What are you trying to achieve, and where are the timelines fitting in? So hopefully this is helping you guys. Again, tune in tomorrow for some more lifts and watch some of that volume dial down a lot. This has been Selwyn from WynnStrength, and remember, a better life through strength.